So before I pull the seal out of the transfer case, I'm going to drop the fluid, and when I'm all done, I'll fill it back up so it'll be like a transfer case fluid change. And before I drop that fluid, I'm going to take the skid plate off. It just makes things a little bit easier when you're draining. And we've got 5 12mm bolts on this guy, so I want to pull those out and drop the skid plate off as our first step. I'll do that off camera to make things quick. So I just finished replacing the pinion seal on the front differential there, and so far so good, no leaks. But what I've come across is the seal on the transfer case is also leaking, and it's a lot worse than the front differential one was. And this has happened since I replaced the drive shaft. And I kind of figured I would have to replace this seal when I did the drive shaft, just because it's a new shaft. We pulled the old one out, put the new one in there, and it might be because the seal's worn out. It might be because the new shaft is a fraction of a millimeter smaller than the other one was, or it could be just from inserting it. The seal could be kind of worn out or tired, or I could have damaged it when I put it in. But you can see there is transmission fluid around here, so we're going to pull that drive shaft back out and replace that seal. You are going to need a drain pan when you pull that seal out, so you might as well do a complete change anyways. This is our drain. It is a 10mm hex, and then it fills up here. So we're going to crack the drain and then crack the fill. The fill's already loose because I added some fluid this morning before I went for a drive. So we've got a drain pan lined up. We'll know soon. Nope, no. Okay, and we have a magnet. Check that, it looks good. Before I remove this drive shaft, I'm just going to mark it so we get it lined up exactly the same way. And then I've got my 17mm wrench for the nut side, and I have a 17mm socket with a swivel for the bolt side. I'm going to break all 4 of those bolts free and remove 3 of them before I take the drive shaft down. There we go, and we'll just put it on that box. And we've got to slide it back a little bit. And I'll bring it down and set it on that box. So the next step is to remove this dust cover. You can put a screwdriver against it and tap it around until it comes loose. Just be a little careful because you can nick the housing. There's 2 parts to it too. I did nick it a tiny bit. I'm going to clean that up and clean it up all the way around. I'll use some brake clean. And I got my seal off. It looks like I can reuse this. I would recommend maybe having a new one on hand before you start. Like, this one doesn't look bad. I'll clean it up and try and put it back on. I couldn't get one in time, so I'm going to try reusing it, and that part was inside. Just sat in there, and let's move around for a better shot of that seal. So there's a rubber seal up in there around the shaft, and that's what we got to get out. So I'll grab a seal puller and try and use that. So I just broke my little tripod, so I'm going to have to hold the camera for these under the truck shots. There's our seal in there. And this one is mostly rubber. The other seal, the drive shaft pinion seal, was part steel, so it was a little harder to get out. So I'm hoping that this one will just pull out. I'm going to have to use both hands probably to maneuver in there properly, but you get the idea. It's a different style of seal. It's all internal. The other one had a steel lip on the outside, so we'll get in there and wiggle it out. So looking at the new seal here, the inside is all greased up already. I'm going to put a little bit of grease around the outside to help it slide in and seal. And I'm also going to put a little bit of grease on that spring just to hold the spring there and prevent it from popping off. And we'll go and push that in. The old seal came out easily. I was able to easily pull it out with the seal puller. And it didn't look too bad. It might just be a little bit worn and not made up with the new drive shaft. So we'll get this new one pushed in. So what I've done to get the new seal in there is I've used the old seal and a hammer and just tapped around the outside evenly all the way around until it's in. And as you can see, it seats in a little bit lower than the edge of the housing. So you are going to have to use something to tap it in. You can't just use a piece of wood or a hammer. You're going to have to use something. And now it's in. We'll try and get our drive shaft back up. So I've got the dust seal back up in place. I did put a little bit of gray RTV silicone around the outside edge just to hold it on. And then I used a hammer handle and put that around the edge and tapped it on with another hammer. And before we put the drive shaft on, I'm going to put a little bit of ATF on the shaft there and then gently lift that in through the seal. So with everything back up in place, we can line up our drive shaft. There's our mark, so it's lined up. Then we can reinstall our 17mm bolts, and those will be torqued to 61 foot-pounds. So with everything back up in place and the rear drive shaft bolts torqued down, we can look at refilling our transfer case fluid. And we will want to open up our fill, which is a 10mm hex. The torque on these fill and drain is 26 foot-pounds, so you can torque them down when you're done. And we're going to use our red Amsoil Signature Series ATF and fill it up till it starts coming out the fill hole. So I've added some fluid into the transfer case. I'll level out the truck. I'm still on ramps. And then I'll just top it up till it starts running back out the fill hole. Torque that down and then we're done. I'm also going to put this skid plate back on. The 6 12mm bolts on that. And we're good to go. Take it for a test drive. So please subscribe, enable notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. If there's any questions or anything that I missed, please leave a comment and let everyone know. Thanks for watching.